I'm a 25-year-old woman, and not long ago, my life was turned upside down by a betrayal I never saw coming. You hear stories about infidelity all the time, but you never think it's going to happen to you, let alone involve your own family. But here I am, picking up the pieces after finding out that my 24-year-old sister had been having an affair with my 25-year-old ex-boyfriend. We had been in a relationship for 3 years, and I thought we were solid, building a future together. Turns out they had been sneaking around behind my back for over a year, possibly even longer. Looking back, it's almost ridiculous how I missed all the signs. I had noticed that my sister and my ex were getting closer, but I thought nothing of it. They bonded over video games, something she was passionate about but that never really interested me. I even thought it was cute that my boyfriend was making an effort to connect with her on that level. They'd play for hours talking about strategies, new releases, and inside jokes that I didn't understand. I was busy juggling college and work, trying to build a future for myself and for us, so I figured I'd let them have their fun. Little did I know, while I was working late shifts and studying for exams, they were planning secret dates and rendezvous right under my nose. The realization came slowly, but once it hit, it felt like a freight train. One evening, I was at home alone, cleaning up, when I accidentally stumbled upon a message notification on my ex's phone. It was from my sister, and the preview was just odd. It was more intimate than a sisterly chat should be. My heart sank, but I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Still, something didn't sit right, so when he went to take a shower, I did something I had never done before. I went through his phone. I didn't just find one suspicious message, I found dozens of them, spanning back months. Texts, photos, and even videos that painted a picture I never wanted to see. There they were, talking about meeting up when I was at work, sharing jokes that were way too intimate, and flirting in ways that made my skin crawl. The worst part was seeing the messages where she asked him if he thought she was smarter or prettier than me, comparing our bodies, our looks, even our personalities. They dissected me like I was a competitor they needed to outshine, and I felt sick to my stomach. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I wanted to scream, to cry, but all I could do was sit there, numb, as the messages kept coming, each one more painful than the last. How could this be happening? How could my own sister, someone I had always been so close to, do this to me? Growing up, we'd never been the kind of sisters who were constantly competing. Sure, we had our squabbles, every sibling does, but I always thought we were there for each other. Our parents never compared us, never played favorites. I thought she was happy being herself, and I was content being me. But here I was, reading these messages where she was comparing every inch of herself to me, as if she needed to prove something. As if being my sister wasn't enough, she needed to beat me. When my ex got out of the shower, I was waiting for him, my hands shaking but my voice steady. I asked him straight out, "How long have you been sleeping with my sister?" He froze, and I could see the gears turning in his head, trying to figure out if he should lie or admit it. But there was no point, I had all the proof I needed. I started throwing his things into a bag, one by one, and when he tried to stop me, I lost it. I screamed at him, calling him every name under the sun, listing every single way he had betrayed me. I even brought up the PC I had bought him for Christmas, the one I saved up for, and told him there was no way he was taking that with him. I wanted to hurt him, to make him feel even a fraction of the pain I was feeling. In the end, he left with his tail between his legs, and I was left standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of my life. But the real confrontation was still to come. I waited for my sister to reach out, to try and explain herself, but she didn't. She didn't text, didn't call, nothing. For over a week, she stayed silent, and that silence spoke volumes. She was hiding, too cowardly to face what she had done. Eventually, she sent me a message, trying to downplay the whole thing as a mistake that had somehow lasted over a year. She had the audacity to ask for my forgiveness, pleading with me to understand because we were sisters. As if sharing the same blood meant I should just forget how she had crept into my life and torn it apart. I couldn't just let it go. I sat down and wrote her a long, detailed message, pouring out everything I was feeling. I didn't hold back. I told her that I had always been there for her, through everything. When she had been bullied at school, I had stood up for her. When she struggled to make friends, I had introduced her to mine. I reminded her of how I had always defended her, even when she was wrong, because I believed in her, and I loved her. And this is how she repaid me. By becoming the other woman to my boyfriend. I told her that she had always been selfish, but this was a new low. We're sisters, I wrote. And you should have known better. What you did was unforgivable, and deep down, you know it. Now you want to act like the victim. But let's be clear, you spent a year sneaking around, lying to my face, and pretending to care about me while you were betraying me. I'm done with you. You're not my sister anymore, and I don't care if I never see you again. Her response was predictable. A 4-minute-long voice message, filled with sobs and excuses. She talked about her anxiety, how mentally weak she felt, how hard things had been for her. But she never once addressed the hurtful things she had said about me in those messages. She didn't apologize for comparing our bodies, for treating our relationship like a competition she had to win. She just talked about herself, as always. I didn't even listen to the whole message. I was so disgusted, I turned it off halfway through. Was it cold of me to have no sympathy for her? Maybe, but you don't get to destroy someone's life and then ask for pity because you're feeling anxious. I had been there for her through everything, and this was how she repaid me. I was done. My parents eventually found out about the whole thing. I didn't want to tell them at first. I was embarrassed, ashamed, and honestly, I didn't want to see the look of disappointment on their faces. But they deserved to know. My mom was horrified, my dad was livid, and both of them tried to comfort me the best they could. They didn't sugarcoat it. They told me that what my sister had done was wrong, and that I had every right to cut her off. I don't know what they said to her, but I heard through our aunt that my sister tried to play the victim with them too, claiming she was in a bad place and didn't mean to hurt anyone. My parents weren't buying it. They had been financially supporting both of us through college, but they decided to cut her off. My sister didn't take that well. She tried to act like she was outraged, saying she needed money for her career, but my aunt told my parents she was actually using the money to buy my ex-boyfriend gifts like sneakers. Of all things, it was pathetic, and I was glad my parents saw through her lies. They cut her off, and she stopped speaking to them, except when she needed cash. But my dad was done. He had always been patient with her, even when she skipped classes and failed exams, but this was the last straw. Meanwhile, my ex reached out to me after stumbling upon a viral post I made about the situation. He sent this long, self-pitying message, saying he realized he was wrong, that my sister had manipulated him, and that he wanted to apologize for the pain he had caused. I read the message, laughed, and blocked him. Manipulated. Give me a break. He knew exactly what he was doing, and if he thought I was going to give him a free pass, he was even dumber than I thought. Since then, I've heard through mutual acquaintances that my sister and my ex are still messing around, but it's an on and off train wreck. They're constantly cheating on each other, or maybe even in some twisted open relationship I don't care enough to know the details. They've been seen at clubs with different people, always stirring up drama, and honestly they can have each other. They're perfect for each other in the worst possible way. I avoid the clubs they go to because I have no interest in getting dragged back into their mess. One of the last interactions I had with my sister was when she contacted me from a new number. Apparently, some of her friends had figured out who my viral post was about, and she was furious. She accused me of ruining her reputation and painting her as a slut, as if I was the one who made her cheat with my boyfriend. She demanded that I take the post down, but I told her that was never going to happen. I didn't write it to shame her, I wrote it to get my story out, to vent the anger that was suffocating me. She tried to make me feel guilty, calling me a coward, but I just blocked her number and moved on. She doesn't get to tell me how to handle my own pain. These days, I'm focusing on myself. I sold the PC I had bought for my ex to someone on Reddit, and that saved me from having to worry about the payments. My ex tried to ask for it back, thinking I'd just hand it over, but I told him if he wanted it, he'd have to pay off the remaining balance. He refused, of course, still thinking he could get something for nothing. Typical. As for my sister and my ex, they can keep playing their toxic games. I'm done. I'm done worrying about them, done caring about what they do, and done letting their drama affect my life. I've wasted enough time and tears on people who don't deserve an ounce of my sympathy. Now I'm focusing on my studies, my career, and building a future that has nothing to do with them. They're still out there, living their chaotic, messy lives, and I'm moving on, finally free from the weight of their betrayal.
Did you hear? Apparently, Zach's been using artificial intelligence to write all his Tinder messages. He's been really successful, and that's why he's been getting so many dates recently.